Imagine a room filled with music legends, songwriters who wrote the soundtrack of entire generations, all gathered for one of the most prestigious nights in the music industry. Now imagine, in the middle of that room, sitting quietly in the crowd, a professional football player who had just come straight from football practice hours earlier, still catching his breath from a mandatory team session, now dressed up and seated in a room full of icons, waiting to watch the woman he loves make history. This is the story of the night Taylor Swift became the youngest woman ever inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, and how Travis Kelce's presence turned an already unforgettable night into something the internet could not stop talking about. Let's set the scene properly. It's June 11th, 2026, inside the Marriott Marquis Hotel in the heart of New York City. The Songwriters Hall of Fame has been running the ceremony since 1969, honoring the people behind the words and melodies that shape music history. This isn't a flashy pop culture award show. It's an industry institution, the kind of place where the people being honored are usually the ones who write hits for other artists, the invisible hands behind decades of unforgettable songs. Being inducted here means something different than winning a Grammy. It means the songwriting community itself, the people who understand the craft better than anyone, are saying you belong among the greats. That night, Taylor Swift joined a class of inductees that included Kenny Loggins, Alanis Morissette, Walter Afanasieff, Paul Stanley, and Gene Simmons of Kiss, along with several other celebrated songwriters. At just 36 years old, Taylor became the youngest woman in history to receive this honor. To put that into perspective, the previous record for youngest inductee belonged to Stevie Wonder, who was 32 years old when he was inducted back in 1983. Think about that for a second. Taylor Swift, a name that has become almost synonymous with modern songwriting, had just placed herself in a category alongside one of the most legendary musical minds of all time. But here's where the night takes an unexpected turn, the kind of moment that nobody could have scripted better, even if they tried. Taylor wasn't introduced by just anyone. She was introduced by director Steven Spielberg, someone she has openly called one of her idols. Picture that image for a moment, one of the most influential filmmakers in history standing at a podium, about to introduce one of the most influential songwriters of her generation. The room buzzes with anticipation. Cameras are ready, and somewhere in the crowd, quietly watching everything unfold, sits Travis Kelce. Now, getting Travis into that seat wasn't simple. Just 2 days earlier, he had missed another major moment in Taylor's life, the premiere of Toy Story 5, where she surprised the audience with a live performance of her new song written for the film. He couldn't be there because of football obligations. The Kansas City Chiefs were in the middle of mandatory minicamp, a non-negotiable part of an NFL player's schedule. Missing team commitments isn't really an option, even for someone dating one of the biggest stars in the world. So when it came time for the Songwriters Hall of Fame ceremony, there was real uncertainty about whether Travis would even be able to make it. But he did. He wrapped up minicamp obligations, got on a flight, and arrived at the Marriott Marquis just in time to take his seat among family members before the ceremony began. Sitting beside him that night were people who mean everything to both of them, his mother Donna Kelce and Taylor's mother Andrea Swift. It wasn't just a random appearance. It was a deliberate, last-minute sprint across the country to be there for someone he cares about on one of the most significant nights of her career. When Taylor finally took the stage to accept her honor, something shifted in the room. She delivered a heartfelt, 21-minute speech, and it wasn't filled with rehearsed, polished lines. It felt personal, vulnerable, and honest. She spoke about her family's decision to leave Pennsylvania when she was still a teenager, uprooting their entire lives so she could chase a career in songwriting in Nashville, often considered the songwriting capital of the world. She reflected on how strange it must have been for her parents and her brother to give up everything familiar just so she could have a shot at turning her passion into a career. At one point, her voice cracked with emotion as she thanked her parents, Andrea and Scott Swift, along with her brother Austin, for the sacrifices they made. She said that even though words were supposed to be her specialty, she still couldn't find the right ones to fully capture her gratitude for what her family had done for her. It was raw. It was real. And for a room full of songwriters who understand exactly how hard it is to put feelings into words, that kind of vulnerability landed powerfully. She also spoke about her own creative process, describing songwriting as something instinctual, something no one ever had to teach her. She explained that when she called songwriting the easiest part of her life, what she really meant was that it came naturally to her, almost like breathing, while everything else around fame and public life required far more effort to navigate. Throughout the speech, cameras kept cutting to Travis in the audience, watching intently, clearly moved by what he was hearing. And here's where the moment turned from touching to unforgettable. During a medley performance later in the night, Taylor turned toward the crowd and dedicated the moment to the people who had heard every single demo before those songs ever became finished tracks, before the world ever got to hear them. As she said those words, she turned and looked directly at Travis. In that instant, phones across the room shot up to capture it. That single gesture, small as it seemed, became the moment that broke the internet. It wasn't just a sweet gesture caught on camera. It represented something deeper about their relationship. The idea that Travis had become someone trusted enough to hear her music in its rawest, most unfinished form, long before the rest of the world ever would. For an artist whose entire career revolves around carefully crafted storytelling, letting someone into that private, unfinished process says a lot about trust. The reaction online was immediate and massive. Within 24 hours, clips from the ceremony were being shared everywhere, turning what is usually a niche industry event into one of the most talked about cultural moments of the year. The Songwriters Hall of Fame, an institution that has operated quietly since 1969, suddenly found itself experiencing a visibility spike unlike anything in its history. Comparisons were drawn to award shows like the Grammys, but the distinction mattered. While the Grammys celebrate performance and recording achievements, the Songwriters Hall of Fame exists specifically to honor the craft behind the music, the lyrics, the melodies, the structure, the years spent writing before anyone even knows your name. It's a recognition from peers who understand exactly how difficult that process really is. Later that night, backstage moments added even more warmth to the story. Travis was seen sharing a friendly embrace with musician Somber, who had performed during the ceremony as a tribute to Taylor. Fans quickly picked up on how genuinely supportive Travis seemed throughout the entire event, not just sitting quietly in the audience, but actively engaging with the people who came out to celebrate Taylor's achievement. What makes this story so compelling isn't just the glamour of a star-studded night in New York City. It's the layers underneath it. A football player squeezing in an appearance between mandatory team commitments. A director introducing an artist he deeply admires. A daughter thanking her parents for uprooting their entire lives for her dream. An artist becoming the youngest woman in history to receive one of music's most respected honors. And in the middle of it all, a quiet, genuine moment between two people who have found a way to support each other despite living in two incredibly demanding, high-pressure worlds. It's easy to get lost in the headlines, the viral clips, and the flashy photos from nights like these. But if you slow down and really look at what happened that evening, it tells a much simpler story. It's about family sacrifice, about chasing a dream against the odds, about being recognized by the very industry that once doubted whether a teenage songwriter from Pennsylvania could ever make it. And it's about having someone in your corner who will rush across the country, straight from football practice, just to watch you receive the honor you've worked your entire life to earn. That night in New York wasn't just about an induction ceremony. It became a snapshot of two very different worlds, music and football, colliding in the most human way possible, through loyalty, love, and showing up for the people who matter most, even when your schedule says you shouldn't have the time.